Papa Ken Media.
Hey everyone, so E3 just ended, or at least all the press conferences did, and I have to say, probably one of the best best E3 press conferences that I've seen in probably the past 3-4 years. I think that I've been watching it, and so I'm gonna give you my little recap on it. What I'm watching now, this is just the post recap of the Sony press conference, so really doesn't matter on what you're watching because you can't really see it, but it's on just because I wanted it to. Also going to warn you, there's going to be a lot of me reading because this has been going on since 11 o'clock this morning, so there's me. I was taking notes all day, so there's going to be a lot of me trying to decipher what my notes are and everything like that, so bear with me a little bit. And yeah, so for those of you who have missed it, this is what was announced. So Microsoft started off the day with Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and looks pretty much amazing. Like, they showed off a little bit of gameplay, not so much into what the story is actually going to be. I mean, I also did catch it a little late, but like I said, the gameplay looked fantastic, graphics are amazing, and Kiefer Sutherland is doing the voice for Solid Snake now, so good on that. After that, they announced a new Xbox 360 design, which is their fourth design, I think, and it, to me, just looks just like the Xbox One, just it's an Xbox 360, so I don't know why they did that. Anyway. They announced that there will be 2 free games given out for Xbox Live Gold members, one being Halo 3 and one being Assassin's Creed 2. Cool. I mean, a lot of this is, they were kind of just blasting information at me, and that's all I got out of that. They also announced that there would be new Xbox 360 titles, one of them being World of Tanks, which looked awesome. I have to say, I will be getting it once it comes out, because it's also free to play as long as you have a gold membership. So, no excuse there. Let's see. Then there was Max Curse of Brotherhood, which I believe was done by an indie developer. In fact, if I remember correctly, it was done by another Danish developer. So, Interceptor Entertainment. Cool. But it wasn't them. I can't remember the name of them. And they also announced Dark Souls 2, which I'm not a fan of. I didn't really like the Dark Souls games because, as everyone says, you kind of have to be a masochist to like it. And I played it for a little bit, died enough times to the point where I'm like, F this. Anywho. Then they also announced Rise, Son of Rome, which had a lot of awesome gameplay. They didn't have a HUD on there, which might have been on purpose, just to show more of the graphics. I'm not sure if that's actual final gameplay, but looks really cool. However, there's a lot of QTEs. Like, you'll beat on a person, all of a sudden a QTE will pop up and you'll kill them. That's how it was the whole time. So I really wasn't a huge fan of that, but, I mean, oh well. It's also going to be a launch title for the Xbox One. So, definitely helped in how it looked. Then they also announced Killer Instinct, which was really cool. Didn't really play it back in the day, but it looked awesome. It's another fighting game, but you know, we all know that we can get some diversity on fighters. Sunset Overdrive. It's been developed, or it's in development by Insomniac, which Insomniac really can't do any wrong. And while I was watching the trailer for it, it looked a lot like BioShock Infinite cross Team Fortress 2 cross Mirror's Edge. So it really gave a really unique look at everything, and depending on how much it is, I might buy it. Like I said, it looked really cool, and yeah, moving on. Then they announced Forza 5, which they announced earlier, but they also announced that there's an AI comes from the cloud. So what it does is every time someone races, the AI starts to learn how people race, and then when you start racing other people, it starts to take everything into account, which looked like a really cool thing, except for the name. They named it Drivatar, and it's like, okay. Which that'll be a theme that you see through all of E3 is made up words, and you can tell a marketing guy got a hold of that. Anywho, they announced that Minecraft would be on the Xbox One. Duh. Anyway, moving on. Quantum Break. They announced it at the Xbox One reveal. Didn't show much with it then, but the gameplay or the trailer, I actually don't remember, I didn't write it down, looked really, really good. Again, if I do go along the route of the Xbox One and I buy it, that'll probably be a purchase for me as well. All of these soon, very, very soon, I'm assuming, because a lot of these trailers popped up already. You can go onto YouTube, just search up any of these games, and then add on E3 2013, and you'll find all of these trailers that I'm talking about. If you also want to, I have no doubt they'll put the full press conferences somewhere to find. So if you really don't want to listen to me, I mean, I'm trying to condense 4 hour and a half long presentations into hopefully like 15 to 20 minutes. And granted, it's my thoughts on it too, so whatever. They announced a game called D4. I don't know what it is. They didn't tell a whole lot about it. It was just a quick teaser trailer and D4. I guess we'll find out later. Project Spark. This was a really cool game. I was a little put off by it at the beginning, but as they started showing off everything, I was really excited because it reminds me of a Dungeons and Dragons creator. So you can create a level and then have people play through that level, and it's kind of like it's fighting. So it's what I've read a lot in Twitter is it's the Little Big Planet that has fighting in it. So I thought it looked really cool. Like I said, they started showing a little bit of gameplay with that, and as I was watching that, I started to get really sold on it. But initially when they put it off, I'm like, okay, cool, another Little Big Planet. Whatever. Xbox really was pushing Smart Glass in this. For those of you who don't know, it's the interface that you can use on a tablet in order to interface with your Xbox. Currently, Xbox 360, they're pushing it a lot for Xbox One. And, I mean, it really didn't take off that well to begin with, and they're still really pushing it for everything else. So, I mean, yeah. Then to show off all of the Smart Glass stuff, they did another Killer Instinct. They actually demoed Killer Instinct with one guy on a fight stick, pro, and another person fighting on the Smart Glass. So it shows that interactivity again, but someone who's going to play on a fight stick versus someone who's going to play on a tablet, who do you think is going to win? And sure enough, fight stick won. They did also announce that Xbox One would be able to live stream to Twitch, which, again, for people who do Let's Plays and people like even me, who, I mean, I'm trying to do a ignorant gamer channel, so when I get a game, it'd be nice to pop it in, immediately throw on Twitch, and just be like, I don't know what's going on, who is this person? But I don't know the exact details on that. They just announced that they are partnering with Twitch. So, again, thought it was kind of cool. Sorry, it's going to be a long discussion. they also announced the new Xbox Live for Xbox One. Everything that I saw for the new Xbox Live, I thought was pretty cool, because they took off the friend cap, because I think it was 100 was the cap for it. They changed Microsoft points to actual currency, so instead of trying to figure out what 160 Microsoft points translates to, it's just going to be like, here's $2. Um, and they also made it so you can share your gold membership with family. So that was, again, that's one of the cool things. And I mean, I don't have a family, so it doesn't really affect me, but it would be nice for the future to be able to buy one gold membership and be like, here you go, you're part of my family, everyone can take advantage of it. So that was another cool thing. Then we get into the bigger announcements, the more the core gaming announcements. And first one that they let off with was Dead Rising 3. Oh, I mean, I liked Dead Rising 1 a little bit. I liked Dead Rising 2 a little more. This one looks awesome. They have just a ton of zombies in it, and there was times where I'm like, hey, you're going to totally die here. Like, there's probably a good 50 zombies on screen. And sure enough, they didn't. But, I mean, it's E3. What are you going to do? And they also have, it feels a lot more like an actual zombie game as opposed to everything else that a zombie takes like 80 hits and then finally goes down. No, these zombies that at least they were showing in the gameplay took like 3-4 hits if you hit it right and down. So it's kind of cool with item management, as Dead Rising usually is. They had a lot of customizing with it. You can customize a bunch of weapons. Like what they showed was you could, if you had a flashlight and a gun, you could tape up the gun without having to go to a workbench. So for those of you who've played Dead Rising, you know what workbenches are and you know how much of a pain in the ass they are. Nope, you can just sit there and duct tape. There was another one that they had was a buzzsaw and was it a sledgehammer? I think it was a sledgehammer. And they just take the buzzsaw to the end of it. And again, really, really cool. Awesome thing, slow zombies. Actual zombies, again. Like, that's a huge thing. Looked like it was a lot of fun to play. Again, it's one thing to watch it, it's another thing to actually play it. And they also threw in smart glass integration, so whatever. They also announced Witcher 3. Not familiar with the Witcher series. It looked good. However, I prefer to stay commentless on it because I know it's a game that a lot of people like, and I just haven't played it, so I can't really put in a good comment on it. Anyway, so yeah. Battlefield 4. They did a multiplayer, I think this one was a multiplayer showing of it, and they announced that it was going to be running at 60 FPS. The graphics that they had on there were great. Excuse me. Definitely looked like it was running on a next-gen console, so I was really happy with that. It was either next-gen or PC. Who knows? There was a lot of explosions in it. I mean, Michael Bay would look like, I don't know, what's a director that doesn't use explosions? Anyway, and then it actually shows in some boat fighting. So, like, you're on a boat and you're shooting at people, and that looked really cool too. So, I mean, I've always been under the impression that I like Battlefield over Call of Duty. However, it's just become such a saturated market that I just don't really like FPSs anymore. So, cool it on everything, and then I might like them again. So, they also announced a game called Below. My laptop is below the webcam. Again, quick teaser. Don't know anything about it. Then they announced another game from a company called Black Tusk. Again, it's a teaser. They didn't even announce the name of the game, so again, I really don't have much to say there. Then Oh my god, they announced the new Halo game. So awesome. Go watch the trailer. It's a quick teaser. It's something that you won't recognize as Halo to begin with, but the way that Halo 4 was told, because again it's 343, the way that Halo 4 was told, I am so excited for this Halo game. They didn't announce that it was Halo 5. Everyone assumes that it is. So definitely check that out. My seal of approval. And when they announced, once the cloak kind of came down and you saw that it was Master Chief, so a little bit of spoiler, but again, it's a teaser trailer. You can find it. I got chills. Like, it was done so well that I was happy. And then the last game that they announced, which was right as they were ending, there was something that was said before it, but I'm going to leave that to the end. They announced the new Respawn game, which is exclusive to Xbox One, called Titanfall. I mean, it looked like another mech game. I mean, you're fighting on foot too. You're fighting in mechs. It looks okay, in my opinion. I want to support Respawn because, I mean, I applied there at one time, so yeah. But anyway, so it didn't look like anything special to me. But lastly, for the Microsoft press conference, they did announce that the Xbox One would be released in November of this year at $499. Way too much. I'm sorry. That is way too high for a console. I mean, PS3 released at about that price range didn't sell anything because it was way too high. So I thought Xbox would have learned, maybe sold it at a $450 price point, which still I think would have been high, but it would have been a little bit more reasonable. And in fact, supposedly, I didn't hear it, but I've heard it through a bunch of other people saying it. When they announced the $499 price point, someone in the crowd yelled, "F you, Microsoft." This is in the press conference that whoever's in there is usually a huge fan, so yeah. So $500 to buy a new console, probably not going to get it. Moving on to EA. This one's a little bit shorter because, I mean, they're not a console, so they really were just announcing games, and I think it was a shorter conference anyway. The intro, awesome. Just look up the intro. I liked it. The first game that they announced was Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. This game looked awesome. It's done with the Plants vs. Zombies characters, but it's done in a almost third-person shooter perspective. For those of you who have Steam, it kind of reminded me of Dungeon Defenders. So it's kind of like that hybrid third-person shooter tower defense game, and I love Dungeon Defenders. I wanted to get in. Oh, all right. There we go. Anyway, wanted to get into that third-person. Get into Plants vs. Zombies. Sorry, that really threw me for a loop. And yeah, the only bad thing, they didn't announce it for PS4. So they said it was Xbox 360 and Xbox One. So a little bit of a sad thing, but oh well. Then Peggle 2. That is actually what the guy did. He's like, this is going to be such an awesome game. Peggle 2! And then walked off stage. I let out an audible laugh in the office. So, yeah. Then they showed Titanfall again, but this time as a dev diary. So it was kind of cool again to see how gameplay's developed and all of that stuff. So if you want to watch it, there's a dev diary available. And yeah. Then they announced that they were going to be. They announced at the Xbox One reveal that they were working with it's a new engine called Ignite, which is their sports engine, and it looked really cool. I didn't really mark down anything because sports, they really are all kind of the same, and whatever. Um, so after they announced that, they said that all of the next few games are going to be done or will have been developed on this engine. First one they let off with, Star Wars Battlefront. So excited. I had a ton of fun with Star Wars Battlefront back on the Xbox. Not the Xbox One, the original Xbox. Why did they name it Xbox One? Um, Again, teaser looked really cool. I lost my shit. It was awesome. Then they announced a new Need for Speed game. It's called Need for Speed Rivals. And for those of you who've watched my last video for Need for Speed Most Wanted, kind of know how I felt about it, and I was meh about it. This one actually looks pretty decent. It's a lot more of the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit gameplay, which I enjoy. I love Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. So, yeah, they had a little bit of gameplay with that, and in fact, how they had the stage really kind of engulfed me into the gameplay to the point where I didn't type up a bunch of notes. But I did make a point to write down that it is tablet compatible. So for the people who are chasing the racers, someone can have a tablet and actually call in support for the cops. So I thought that was kind of a cool addition. Obviously, you don't need it, but it's cool to have. Then they pulled out Aaron Paul who is Jesse from Breaking Bad, and he was talking about the Need for Speed movie that is coming out in spring of 2014. Bitch. For those of you who don't know where that came from, just look up anything with Jesse from Breaking Bad and you'll know. Let's see. They announced Dragon Age Inquisition, which is going to be coming out in fall of 2014, and it looks just like a Dragon Age game. Again, I'm not a huge medieval RPG player, so I wasn't appealed to it, but I could see the appeal to a lot of other people. So again, if you want to see that, go check out the trailer. You'll see. Now we get into the sports section. So yay! They pulled out. I can't remember who the player was, but for NBA Live 14, they pulled out a player. So I put the obligatory sports star coming in. It's done on the Ignite engine, like I had said earlier, and it was really a silent crowd through the whole thing. So, then they announced Madden 25, which, for those of you who know how Madden does their games, it's normally by year. So it's a little confusing that this is the 25th anniversary, and they name it Madden 25 when it's not the year 2025. But anywho, and then they announced that Adrian Peterson from the Vikings, who I cheer for, he's going to be on the cover of Madden 25. So good for him. I'm happy. It's another Madden game, also done on the Ignite engine. So, I mean, again, it's another football game. So, next, Drake came out, like the rapper Drake, talked about how he likes soccer, and then he walked off. So obviously that means FIFA. FIFA 14, they announced, they had a lot of soccer players talking over a little bit of the trailer gameplay, and then they announced that it was coming out for next gen only. So for those of you who want to kind of keep with their PlayStation 3 and their Xbox 360, no FIFA for you. Then I was really happy with this one. just because I'm weird, and I would totally do it, except I'm in an apartment and people would hate me. Um, so they had Bruce Buffer, who is the announcer for UFC, come in, and he announced Dana White, I think one of the developers for UFC, the new UFC game, and two of the champions for UFC. And they were all out there, they were talking. Um, I always liked UFC from the very first one, UFC Undisputed. And I mean, I guess they've been getting better and better. I'm not good at them by any means because there's a lot to them. And yeah, they announced that it was going to be coming out in spring 2014. And I said it earlier, it's going to be the running theme. They also came up with a new term called MMAI. And apparently it's like it's the AI to help your opponents figure out how to counter and all of that stuff. I don't know. They didn't touch on it too much, so whatever. Battlefield 4 again. This one was single player. I didn't make note of that. And another made up word, they said levolution a lot in it. So there's a lot of changing in the environment. And it looked cool. It looked like it was it was a good way to do it. Stupid term. Stupid term. And then to top the whole thing off, they said, we've got a big surprise for you. We've actually listened to you, so Mirror's Edge 2. And I got really excited because I liked Mirror's Edge 1. Again, I wasn't good at it for a little bit. I got stuck, and then I got angry. But I do acknowledge that there were some probably bad gameplay aesthetics to it, but if there's a second one, you'd think they'd fix that. But anywho. Next one was Ubisoft, and in fact, I missed a little bit of it because they started it at 5. I was leaving work at 5, so I did catch a little bit of the recap. They announced Rocksmith, Splinter Cell Blacklist, Rayman Legends, and South Park: The Stick of Truth, which was actually announced last year. I'm not too familiar with them, again, because I missed that part of it. I just saw that those were announced. So again, probably a good idea to go check out the trailers, and yeah. Then Eve. I can't remember his last name, but the guy who everything is amazing to. Actually, the game that he announced was pretty good, and it's a game called The Crew, which looks like a really awesome street racing game. I thought it was another Need for Speed game, but it really holds a completely different feel. They said that it was an online persistent world, which one could question, does that mean it's always online? They didn't answer that at all, so we'll find out in the future. The cool thing is there's a lot of terrains, so you can change your car up to be a good off-road racer. You could be good street racing. It could be good everything like that. So, anywho, then I made a note that it felt more Need for Speed than Need for Speed Most Wanted. So, yeah. Then Watch Dogs. Yes. Will get. Don't care on what. That will be in my collection. The gameplay of that they showed was awesome. It showed everything that you can, or a lot of things that you can do. I think I will be terrible at it because it's very stealthy. But I will have a blast being terrible at it. So, now I got into because it's Ubisoft, they do have their weird titles. They announced Just Dance 2014, coming out holiday 2013, and it supports up to 6 players. It's another Just Dance game. Rabbids Invasion for the few people who know, I do really enjoy the Raving Rabbids games. I laugh out loud every time I see them, and it's, yeah, it's just stupidly entertaining. And it's meant to kind of play out like a TV show, so kids can play it and they can interact with this TV show, and I thought that was a really cool concept. However, it's definitely for kids. You won't see me screaming at my TV to play a game. Yeah. Then they announced Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. I mean, I guess it's not really announced. It's already been said. But they did show a little bit more stuff with it. This one was more of a cinematic trailer. There's a lot of pirate ships. And then I couldn't see a lot of fun with it if you're really confined to a ship. But it was very colorful and very bright, so I mean that was another kind of cool thing with it. However, Assassin's Creed 4 came up in the Sony press conference, so I'll touch on it again there a little bit more in detail. So then they announced 2 Trials games. So for those of you, Trials HD, Trials Evolution, there was a Trials game on Flash. Those games, I really like those. Achievement Hunter seems to really, really like them, and they announced 2 of them. They announced Trials Fusion, which looked to be a lot more in the sky and just a little bit more insane, but it's running on the next-gen console only. Then they announced Trials Frontier, which is a little bit more 2D. It's looked cel-shaded to me, and that's mobile only. So the fact that those 2 games are coming out looked really cool on 2 completely different systems, and depending on if I get one of these systems, I might look into Trials Fusion because it looked really good. I'm not a huge fan of mobile gaming myself, but I can see the appeal to it. Then lastly, they announced a new IP called Tom Clancy's The Division. The race, again, they had some gameplay to it, and I really only could draw a couple of things out of it. There was a great HUD. They pulled up the world map, and it actually showed up around him. And I thought that was really cool. But the idea of it's kind of the end of the world pandemic where this happened. This is, I think, a couple weeks after an outbreak of a virus happens. So there's a lot of craziness going on, a lot of survival, and it's this special team that gets sent in to take care of everything, make sure there is some law, and yeah. I'm interested in seeing what's to come of that in the future. As of right now, I mean, it looks good, but anyway, so that ended the Ubisoft conference. Now we get into the PS3. Actually, sorry, Sony. And I'm a big Sony guy. I prefer my PS3 to my 360. However, I will play my 360 for games that I have to play with on the 360. So the first thing that they announced was they were going to have The Walking Dead Season 2 that they called 400 Days coming this summer to PlayStation. I haven't played The Walking Dead yet. It's a Telltale game, not the other one. But I do have the first Walking Dead game on Steam that I'm going to play. I've heard it's amazing, and I want to play it. I just haven't had the time to. Then they went through a list of PS3 games. They went through them like this. There were quick teaser trailers, so I couldn't really get a whole lot out of it. They talked about Last of Us real quick, which is actually coming out later this week, but it has a 95 on Metacritic, which is nearly unheard of. So I will probably be buying that game because it looks really good. Then they announced a game called Puppeteer. They showed a longer trailer for Beyond Two Souls, which is the game that has Ellen Page in it. I don't remember who the developer is for it, but it looks really good. It feels a lot like LA Noire with kind of how realistic it looks, and looking forward to more on that. The cinematic trailer that they showed looked really cool. Then they announced Gran Turismo 6, obviously. They announced Batman Arkham Origins, which I think they were talking about was the last one in the series, or it was just another one in the series. I don't remember. Which comes out October 25th of this year, is what they said. And then they announced Grand Theft Auto 5 for PS3, which they are coming out with they have an exclusive GTA 5 bundle, which looked cool. I already have a PS3, so don't need one, but for those of you who don't have a PS3 and won't get GTA 5 otherwise, pretty decent bundle. I don't remember what the price point is. Again, they went through everything so quick I didn't get a chance to write it down. Then they unveiled the PS4. Finally. I mean, they announced it 4 months ago, and they've just been teasing it. Looked good. To me, it looked a lot better than the Xbox One. However, it also looked very similar to the Xbox One. It has kind of a matte and gloss finish. It's black. Hopefully I'll try and put a picture of it on here. No guarantees. It really all depends on if the picture is available online, which probably is. It kind of has a slanted design. So so pretend that this is the front, this is the back of a normal console. So we'll say PS2 because it's a good box. The PS4 actually comes up like this. So the front is slanted up and the back is slanted back like that. It looks weird. I'm curious on what the ports are and all that stuff. But they actually had the console. So props to you. They also announced that there would be pay-per-view abilities to PlayStation Network, which is kind of cool. I would like to watch my WrestleMania in HD as opposed to non-HD or having to go to a buddy's house to watch it. They announced a game called The Order, which I was a little lukewarm about again at the beginning, but as the trailer went on, I started to like it more and more. There's a lot of futuristic weapons. There's almost like a lightning gun, I think, that I saw, but it's set in the 1880s. So, again, looking forward to see more on that. Then they announced Killzone Shadowfall, which had some pretty cool gadgets. It looked and felt just like Killzone, but there's been a little bit of tweaking with it. Again, these gadgets, you can throw out a little robot and it'll shoot out a shield in front of it. You can shoot through, but enemies can't shoot through it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then there's something similar to if you've played Halo 4, it's similar to the Promethean vision where you can kind of send out a sonar and you can see where people are behind walls. And look cool. I probably won't get it because, I mean, it's a Killzone game. I played and beat Killzone 3, and I just kind of was done with it. Then they announced Drive Club. Drive Club I realize now that I hit this, these games went through pretty quickly too. So, yeah. So they announced Drive Club. Statement. Then they announced Infamous Second Son, which I think they announced back at the PlayStation reveal, or announcement, I should say, not reveal. And they announced that it was coming out Q1 of 2014. So, looked cool. I have Infamous 1. I haven't beat it. I haven't really gone back to it. Haven't played Infamous 2. So, it might be a rent for me, but look good. Then they put out some more videos for the game called Knack, which is the very first game that they announced at the PlayStation 4 reveal. looked kind of like silly fun, which there are times where I'll like it. Other times it might feel a little too kiddie for me. So whatever. Then this was actually a pretty funny trailer for the Dark Sorcerer. Um, it was very cinematic in the fact that I wasn't sure if it was real or not. Um, but it was of this guy, like of the sorcerer casting a spell and everything, and um, then right at the end, well, no, I'm not going to spoil it. Watch it; it's worth the watch. Um, but the graphics on it looked, like I said, I couldn't tell if it was real or fake. So then they announced a game called Transistor. That's all I know. Um, then they announced a huge exclusive to PlayStation Network indie game selection, which they went rapid fire through, but they named 8 games, and a number of them looked awesome. So they're really pushing the indie development, which I really like coming as an indie developer. They also announced Final Fantasy Versus 13. Looks just like a Final Fantasy game, which is gorgeous. Um, However, it doesn't look like it plays like a Final Fantasy game, which intrigued me because there are times where I just don't like the battle system in Final Fantasy. This one looked more kind of like a hack and slash, and so I'll be looking for that in the future. Whether or not I get it's a different story, but I liked it. It looked fun. Um, then Kingdom Hearts 3. Oh, I thought they were announcing an HD remake, because it came back to that first island in Kingdom Hearts 1, and I'm like, oh, this has got to be an HD remake, and then all of a sudden, 3. So, for those of you who have been begging for an actual Kingdom Hearts sequel, you got it. Then they announced that Final Fantasy XIV would be coming out to PS3 and PS4. So, those of you who aren't sure about upgrading, but you want your next Final Fantasy game, you could keep your PS3 if you want. Then, this E3 seemed to be ridden with bugs. I didn't mark it earlier because I kind of didn't want to put light to it, but during the Battlefield video, during the Xbox press conference, there was no sound, and it was just a really uncomfortable silence, and just you felt bad for the guy. And then there was one earlier that again played through the entire thing with no sound, and I mean, it sucked. Well, here during the Sony one, they were demoing the Assassin's Creed 4 again, like I said. This was actual gameplay of it, which, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Assassin's Creed, and so I mean, I'm still probably not going to get the game, but it looked like it would be fun. What I said earlier with it being solely on a ship, that was not right. It was actually, it started off with you on a camp, or you in a camp on an island, and you're chasing this one guy down, and then you go onto the ship, and then you fight along the ship and everything. But the game froze. So I'm one to say that most of the things that they do are pre-recorded. I'm going to say that that one wasn't. So that hurt a little bit. So, yeah. Then they did Watch Dogs again. Sorry, moving on. They did another Watch Dogs gameplay trailer. Again, awesome. And they announced that there would be an exclusive hour of gameplay for PlayStation. Which, I mean, I'm never into exclusivity because I just don't like it. It's unfair. But anyway, But then they also for Watch Dogs, everything is done on your phone. Like you hack into everything and it's done on your phone. It's really cool that they integrated mobile development for it. So you can be playing the game, you can call for help, and someone will be, if someone has a mobile device, they can go and help you out as you play the game. So it gives that whole. This is a time where mobile integration is awesome because it actually fits within the realm of the game. It doesn't just feel forced in. Then they added LeBron James conversing with a virtual LeBron James for, I think it was NBA Live. Cool. Silence again. Then they announced Elder Scrolls Online. Well, I guess not announced. They showed some more to it. It's definitely an MMORPG, which not a fan of. Makes it sound like I'm a terrible gamer, but I'm just... Well, let me rephrase. MMORPGs depends on the game. I could see myself liking some of them. But they announced that would release in spring of 2014. Then they announced Mad Max. Quick little teaser trailer. It was a teaser. I'm looking forward to seeing more from it, but there's nothing that sold me to it yet either. Then here goes the PlayStation jabs. So it was announced earlier that there was the whole controversy with Xbox having to always be online. They was not going to support used games. They don't support indie. Like all of this crap that happened after the Xbox One reveal. And they did a pretty good job with a press release earlier last week, and then this presentation, they did clarify some other things. However, Sony decided to throw in a few jabs, not even subtly. So Jack Tretton, who's the president and CEO of Sony America, I believe, he comes out and he's talking and he's going, so I'm happy to say that PlayStation 4 does support used games. Eruption of applause. Like, that has been the loudest applause of the entire day. Don't care about any new games. Don't care about any new hardware. Does it support used games? Yes? Sweet. And then he comes out and he goes through a little bit more with we support disc-based games so that you can give a game to a friend, let them experience it, and everything like that. So good on you, Sony. Then he came out with, Sony does not have to be online. Not even for a license check, which is in a completely blatant jab at Microsoft. So again, I let out an audible laugh when I watched it, and might not be the best business practice, but they know what gets people's attention. So the two things that Microsoft seemed to really fail at, Sony made sure that they said that they support used games and that it's not going to have to be online. Not even for any period of time. You can not have internet and you can still play it. They did announce that PlayStation Plus, if you have a PlayStation Plus account, it will integrate into the PlayStation 4. So that means that you can have, if you have a PlayStation Plus account, you'll have it on the PS3, PS Vita, and the PlayStation 4. One account, that's all you need to pay for. So that was cool. I like that. They never really announced that with Microsoft if you have to buy a new Gold membership, an Xbox One Gold. But then they announced that if you have PlayStation Plus, you can get instant access to Drive Club PlayStation Plus Edition when that is available. So another kind of perk to getting PlayStation Plus. Then they showed the world premiere of gameplay for Destiny. which has been announced, and it was probably one of the big things that was being looked at for Sony. Um, to me, it felt like a first-person Mass Effect with multiple people in it, which I kind of find cool because I really liked Mass Effect. Um, but it's a third-person game. Um, you can have some powers. Certain classes have certain powers. It's just like a gun or normal first-person shooter at times. Some of the guns can be really unique, so kind of Borderlands-y with how unique some of the guns can get. And then they had 3 people walk into they called it a public event. So they had 3 people walk into an event that happened that everyone who's around can join in. So normally you're playing the game with like just your friends, and then all of a sudden this big event happens, and all of a sudden there's like 18 people who are in, a lot of them that you don't know. So I like games that do that. I think Guild Wars 2 did that type of thing too, where you're playing the game, all of a sudden just something happens in the world, like a big boss appears out of nowhere, and then everyone goes and teams up, kills it, and then everyone goes on their separate ways. So yes, for me. If I get a PS4, I will be getting the game on PS4. They announced that they'll be getting cloud services in 2014. Basically, they announced like for live streaming or for streaming games and like cloud saves. The one thing that I missed from it is they didn't really go into any more specs with the console. So I'm still not sure on hard drive space. Still not sure on ports. Like nothing like that. They really didn't go into detail on that. So I was a little annoyed by that. However, they did announce the price point for it. $399. Again, I think that was a direct jab at Microsoft by making their system $100 cheaper, which will get it into more hands. However, I mean, to me, $400 is still high for a console, but I think when the 360 came out initially, I think it was $350, maybe? Anyway, it's not a big deal on what it was, but I think that's a valid price point for it. So, made me very happy to see $399, and then they announced that it would be available this holiday season. So, that brings me to now. And all in all, I think Nintendo still has something to go on tomorrow, but it's not a full-blown press conference. My highlights for it was definitely the Sony PS4 price point, the Halo 5, Watch Dogs, Destiny. Sorry, I'm just need to start scrolling through here again. Kingdom Hearts 3. Again, that looked cool. I need to play the other ones though. The Division, again, that's something that I'm waiting to see more on, but that one looked really cool. The Crew, Mirror's Edge 2, definitely Star Wars Battlefront, and Quantum Break. That's my thing. I mean, I'm interested in seeing the new Metal Gear Solid, but that's not high on my list because it's such a stealthy game that I've never been good at. So those would be my highlights of it. If you really need to check stuff out, those would be the ones that I'd recommend. All in all, it was a great E3. I didn't roll my eyes a whole lot. I was not Connect based for the Xbox press conference. It wasn't Move based for the PlayStation press conference. It wasn't Vita based. I mean, they had some Vita stuff, but they're talking about how they want the PS4 and the Vita to integrate as seamlessly as they can. So doing remote play, which I think is really cool, kind of how the Wii U does it. So, like I said, it was a pretty good press conference. The Ubisoft one was entertaining, but I've seen better from Ubisoft. EA's never been a huge thing for me. So it's, in my opinion, if I really need to do a who won E3 debate, I think Sony did. Hands down. Like I said, they threw out the completely blatant jabs, and the fact that they got a huge applause, the biggest applause of the day, for a really long period of time. I think the applause lasted like 30 seconds to a minute, which is long for applause. So that's my recap. Look back or check back here again for my next review. Not 100% sure on which one it is, but that should be coming probably within the next month or so. So I'm BlurryPhoenix. Thanks for watching my E3 2013 recap, and I'll see you in the next review.